everyone, and welcome to the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE video tutorial. So in this particular tutorial, we are looking at the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE writing exam. And I'm going to give you tips on how to maximize your marks, how to prepare as well as possible for the writing exam overall, and how to approach this paper. So, just to introduce myself firstly, my name's Dhananjay Talwar, and I studied French and Italian for my MA at the University of Cambridge, graduating back in 2015. I've been in the field of education ever since then, mainly as a full-time tutor. And I have learnt over 20 languages myself to different levels, and that includes at least 9 to fluency, one of which is Spanish, of course. It's something that I really love doing. I hugely enjoy language learning. And I equally enjoy motivating my students, giving them the methods to be able to learn languages efficiently and effectively, but whilst having a great time as well, and ultimately helping them achieve their target grades and academic goals. And I've done this already with over 500 students whom I've helped to achieve or even surpass their target grade for GCSE or iGCSE language exams as a full-time tutor. I have taught around 8 languages so far to GCSE or iGCSE level, and some of those at high levels too. Now, these are the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE exam boards. This should be correct as of August 2025, and you should recognize your exam board here as well if you're a student. There are 4 for GCSE Spanish, 2 essentially for iGCSE Spanish. There are some differences from exam board to exam board. While there is considerable overlap in terms of the content, it is good to be aware of which exam board you're studying as early as possible. Pearson EdXL iGCSE, for instance, still has a combined reading and writing paper. Both skills are examined together in one paper, so that still remains slightly different. Okay, now these are the possible parts of your Spanish GCSE or iGCSE writing exam. It should go without saying, really, that nobody will have to do all of these tasks. That would be a lot. And the exact number of tasks you have to do and the nature of those tasks does depend on your exam board, as well as on whether you're doing foundation or higher tier, potentially too. But the possible tasks that could come up for your writing exam include the form filling exercise, listing exercise, an exercise where you have to answer in short sentences in Spanish, an exercise where you have to write a brief response to a photo, a mini grammar exercise, a shorter writing task, a longer writing task, and translation, potentially from English to Spanish. So if translation is indeed part of your writing paper, then it would be English to Spanish translation rather than the other way around. And all of those 5 exercises that are mentioned at the top, from the form filling exercise down to the grammar exercise, none of those are covered in these particular videos. They tend to be more formulaic in nature. They're also worth fewer marks and much easier to revise for. I do have a different video, a separate video, which is specifically about the shorter writing task, and another one, a video, which is specifically about the longer writing task. So I highly recommend checking both of those videos out. They should be very useful for the vast majority of students. And I have another video on the topic of translation as well. And that looks at translation from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. So in both directions. So that is well worth watching as well. Now, this is an overview of the exam duration. So how long the writing exam lasts. And you can see, of course, that it is different for different exam boards and potentially for different tiers as well. So make a note of this. It's good to be aware of how long your exam will be. And as you get closer to the exam, try and practice in exam conditions as much as you can. I would, of course, focus, zoom in on only the tier that you are studying. So if you're doing foundation tier, just look at foundation tier for your exam board. And if you're doing higher tier, just look at the higher tier one for your exam board. Of course, the GCSE Spanish exam boards all have a distinction between foundation and higher tier, whereas the iGCSE exam boards do not. And Pearson EdXL iGCSE, you see at the bottom there, still has a combined reading and writing paper. Okay, so now we're moving on to the top tips for the writing exam. So, how should you approach the writing exam? How should you go into the writing exam in order to boost your marks as much as possible? So, the writing exam is, of course, a timed written paper, and therefore time management is really important. There should definitely be a way of checking the time as you're doing the exam. There has to be, whether it's a clock or something else. And as a student, you need to check that periodically. You need to remember to check that from time to time. Because as a student doing a writing exam or any written paper for that matter, you need to be aware of how much time has already gone and how much time is left. And the reason why is so that you know whether you've got to speed up to be able to get through all of the questions in the paper, or whether you can afford to even slow down a little bit and take more time. But make sure that you do give yourself enough time to answer all of the questions thoroughly and to include enough time to check through everything too, because that is very important. Likewise, memorize key phrases. That's something I bang on about a lot, and with reason, because that is one thing that can directly contribute to an increase in grades for most students. Many students will struggle with trickier aspects of Spanish grammar. There are potentially many. Verb tenses, for example, tend to be one, but potentially quite a few aspects of Spanish grammar. And a common way to get around that is to simply memorize set phrases instead. And the beauty of this is it doesn't take too long either. So you should be able to memorize even just a bunch of, say, 5 to 10 phrases, however many you feel confident in being able to remember. And those phrases should contain harder or more complex advanced grammar forms, such as verbs in the subjunctive, if clauses, different ways of expressing an opinion, different ways of linking sentences or clauses, and so on. And then you could even memorize these within a few days of your final exam, as it shouldn't take too long. And once you've done so, you should be able to reel off a few of these or some of these in your writing and potentially even your speaking paper. And they can directly contribute to an increase in your marks because these phrases tend to be associated with the top grades, at least if you've chosen them correctly. I would also really recommend being clear about the differences between the shorter writing task and longer writing task. The videos that I've done separately for each of those tasks should really help with that too. There is a lot of overlap. There are similarities, but certainly your approach to each of these writing tasks is not going to be entirely the same. And what you have to do to score the marks will also change. And make sure that you answer every single bullet point and roughly equally too. No matter how many bullet points you're presented with, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, you need to make sure that your answer includes or addresses every single one of those, and that you do not write much more for one bullet point than you do for another. So you have to address them roughly equally too. That's the same for all students. Doesn't matter what your exam board is, or whether you're doing foundation or higher tier, there are generally marks in the mark scheme for doing this. So definitely not something to take too lightly. A few more tips then for the writing exam. Stick roughly to the word limits for the writing tasks. I'd give yourself about 10% of leeway either way, so above or below the word limit. And I would stick to that to be safer and avoid losing marks for something potentially avoidable. Make sure you check through your writing afterwards and check through thoroughly too. Whenever you're writing in a foreign language, it's likely to take longer actually to check. And it's really important to do so in general, but even more so when writing in another language like Spanish, because even the top candidates will probably spot some mistakes as they go through their own work that they'll hopefully then be able to correct and then boost their mark as a result. So when you're checking through your own Spanish writing, and of course you need to look out for spelling, punctuation, and grammar errors, or SPAG as they're collectively known. Also do check through for the content as well. Make sure you've done everything the question asks you to do. You haven't left out any bullet points, left out any material you had to include, and so on. The next one is for those who have to do translation as part of your writing exam. So that's essentially all students doing a Spanish GCSE exam board rather than a Spanish iGCSE exam board. I do have another video on translation in both directions, But if you are doing translation as part of your writing paper, then make sure you don't translate literally word for word and translate one word at a time, because that is likely to lead to a very clunky and unnatural sounding translation in the final language, in the language you're translating into. Spanish and English are two different languages. They express things quite differently. So yeah, you have to respect that by not translating one word at a time. And lastly, make sure you practice in exam conditions and using past paper materials. As you get closer to the final exam, perhaps a month or 2 months, perhaps even 3 months before the final paper, I would prioritize this and mainly focus on revising through doing past papers in exam conditions. The website of your exam board is a great place to look for past papers. Of course, the format and syllabus of papers can change over time. Perhaps even consider trying to use the more recent papers, trying to save them until last, because they can often be the most accurate or closest to what will come up in your exam. But try and mimic the exam conditions and how it will be on the actual day for you. That's usually the best form of practice. A few more tips then on your writing exam. Make sure you're aware of the exam format for your exam board. It's important to know what exam board you're studying to and whether you're doing foundation or higher tier as early as possible, ideally. Make sure you're aware of the word counts as well for your particular exam board. These can vary, and I have shown them before in each of my other videos. So do make sure that you're aware of these. If you can't remember a specific word, which can happen quite often when you're writing in Spanish or even translating into Spanish, then use a synonym or try and find a way to get around it. Try not to waste too much time just thinking about one word or phrase. And try and find ways of getting around it, such as paraphrasing as well. Finding a different way to express the same concept or idea. If you do that, you should be able to still score the marks. And of course, memorizing high scoring structures. Don't forget about this. These are the key phrases I was mentioning earlier, which can directly boost grades for many students. Okay, now we're just going to take you through a quick quiz to test your understanding of the Spanish GCSE and iGCSE writing paper. So, question 1. Why is checking your work thoroughly so important? I definitely did mention this. Students may well find it annoying to hear teachers harping on about this all the time. But it is something that is very important. So try and remember why exactly it is so important. Okay, let me reveal the answer. So this is important because students will often make mistakes that they're then able to spot and to correct while they're checking, and that could directly boost or increase their marks. So definitely not something to overlook or forget. Question 2 is true or false. As a student, you need to track your time in the writing exam. Is that one true or is it false? I'll give you a few seconds to have a think. Okay, let me show the answer. So this is true. Try and make sure you've always got some awareness of how much time's already gone in the exam and how much time is left, because you need to be able to get through all of the questions in the exam as well as possible, of course, but also you need to have time to check through everything too. Question 3, true or false, you cannot predict exactly which topics your writing tasks will be based on in the writing exam. I'll give you a few seconds to think over this. Okay, I'm going to show the answer now then. This one is true as well. And for that reason, it is very important to revise vocabulary across all your topic areas. Don't just focus on one or two topic areas or be tempted to gamble on certain topics coming up because you can't predict in any way what topics your writing tasks are going to be based on, whether it's the shorter writing task, longer writing task. Okay, and question number 4. What should you do if you cannot remember a specific word that you want to use when you're writing in Spanish? I did mention this near the end, so try and think back to what I said. Okay, I'm going to show the answer. So you should try and get around this. Try not to spend too long on just trying to remember an individual word or phrase. You can get around it by using a synonym, potentially by expressing the same concept in a different way. Yeah, there's a few different options or possibilities, all of which can be useful. So, if you have any questions about any of this, or if you'd like to know more about personalized help, which I do provide too, you can contact me by email, through Facebook, or through Instagram. I do post every day on Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. Share my love of languages with people. I hopefully inspire them to learn languages and make sure they're aware of the benefits of doing so, and provide methods that make language learning efficient, but also very fun at the same time. I post a lot about GCSE and iGCSE languages as well, though, including exam technique, how to revise, how to approach the exam, and more. So I highly recommend following me on each of those platforms. I have many resources available, many of which are free too, for GCSE and iGCSE languages, including Spanish. And I do one-to-one classes, group classes, courses, and plenty more. So don't hesitate to reach out at all if you'd like to know more about any of this.